All right, so today we're going to talk about budgeting. Raise your hand. What is a budget? By the way, how many of y'all actually have a budget? Have actually written out a budget? Okay, or you kind of have your budget in your mind.
I have one.
Okay. So how many of you that have, like, keep your hands up? If you have a budget, keep your hands up. How many of you actually stick to your budget? Okay, I'm right there with you. It's always funny, whenever I tell my mom I'm teaching a class about finance or budgeting, she always literally laughs out loud. But in the business world, I feel like it's easier for me to budget in the business world than it is for me my own personal finances. I don't know why that is, but you guys can't see what I'm seeing, can you? Let me turn the screen on. How about that? All right, so we're going to talk about budgeting. What is a budget? Good, it's a plan. So it's a plan that we sometimes stick to, sometimes maybe have to deviate from a little bit. But if we didn't have that plan to begin with, then we might be even way off, even more way off. What's that? Yeah, okay, absolutely. So what else, how many of y'all are involved with the budgeting process at your jobs? Anybody? No? Okay, so we're gonna talk about that a little bit today. We're gonna talk about why we have budgets, why we have to forecast, different methods that we can use to forecast our volume of business, different types of budgets that we use. We're going to talk about the income statement. Y'all still can't see what I'm seeing because I don't have my computer plugged in. I'll be like, Mr. Uminski, get with the program. Y'all are so polite. Oh my goodness. All right, so now I got to figure out how to fix my screen. That is me, yes. That's me hugging a beluga whale. All right, so a couple of different types of budgets. We're going to talk about those in just a little bit. But why is it important that we do budgets? Why is it important that we create a budget?
In order to maintain from month to month.
Okay, so we have something to compare to, right? So what we actually do, we have something to compare to our plan, like Brittany said. Okay, what's an advantage? That's an advantage. We can compare what we're actually doing to what we planned on doing. How wonderful is that if it actually works out? Does it always work out? No, it doesn't. Okay, what else is another advantage of doing a budget?
You have money for a rainy day.
Yeah, so you might, as part of your budget, you might actually be putting money aside for a capital improvement. So maybe you want to redo your dining room, or you want to get that really nice combi oven for your kitchen to upgrade and expedite the process of preparing that food. And you build that into your budget so that over the course of a few years, you can build that in and purchase that larger piece of equipment or better your restaurant. What else? The other advantages of having or preparing a budget.
I mean, I guess it just helps you know all the income.
Good. So it kind of helps you identify where that income is coming from, okay, and where it's possibly going, where those expenses are. Okay, so your debt to income ratio, how much debt you have, like how much you borrowed versus the income that you have that you're going to have to repay those loans. It gives you a kind of a big picture about all of that. It also, kind of going back to the thought process of where our money is coming from, it can get our different departments working together, okay? We might have a bar and a restaurant. We might have a bar budget. We might have a restaurant, like a food budget. And so we might want to get those two things working together, and how we can maybe help improve the revenue for those different places. And if our bar revenue is not so great, maybe we can figure out why it isn't and figure out what we can do. So it kind of helps us, if our budget versus our actual kind of helps us look back and figure out what we can do to improve in the future. A disadvantage of having a budget. Any disadvantages of having a plan?
You can't overspend.
Yes, absolutely. Sometimes if you're so fixed on that budget, I'm sorry, I can't bring any more help in. I'm over budget. Anybody ever hear their manager say I'm out of labor dollars? I have no more labor budget. I'm out of it. It told me I can spend $10,000 on wages this week, and I'm at $10,001. You all need to go home. Okay, I need one person here. So sometimes it puts us into that backs us up into that corner. That if I don't manage my resources appropriately leading up to the end of the period, I might be out of money. Okay. Now, is it ever okay to go over budget on expenses?
Yes.
It depends. Why?
Like what if there was like an event that wasn't forecasted?
And you actually need those people.
Good.
Hey,
Yeah. So it's okay to go over budget on your expenses if your sales are also over budget. Okay. If you've gone over on what you projected for your revenue, then you can justify that's why you needed more money in expenses because you went over on your sales revenue. Okay. Another disadvantage of a budget. How many of you have heard the phrase "spend it or lose it"?
yes.
What does that mean, Randall? What does "spend it or lose it" mean?
Fills up with your budget.
Like if you have like 10,000 left over, like if you don't spend that 10,000, they'll take it away next year.
Exactly. So budgets might actually lead to over unnecessary spending. Spend it or lose it. It's in my budget this year to spend $10,000, and I've got $10,000 left in my budget. If I don't spend it, next year they're going to think, oh, well, you did okay without that $10,000 this year, so you're not going to get it next year. So then you're like, spend it, or I'm going to lose it next year. So do I really need to buy 2,000 new spoons? Probably not. But if I don't spend that money, then I'm not going to get it next year. And what happens if I need those spoons next year? Okay? So sometimes that disadvantage of that budget is that it leads people to purchase things that are unnecessary. Forecasting. Leslie, what is forecasting in the general term of forecasting?
Informing you about events ahead of time.
Okay, so informing you about events or things that are going to happen ahead of time by using what? What information?
Media, anything.
Okay, so you might be using some kind of like social media of like events that are coming up and happening to kind of help forecast that volume of business. Good. I heard it over here.
Trends.
So trends that have happened in the past. Okay, so forecasting is using past data to predict the future. Besides restaurants, who else forecasts?
The city.
Hotels, the city.
We already know the events that happen every year.
Yep. The weather person. Are they always right?
No.
No. They're not always right. They're right sometimes. Except when they say it's going to snow in San Antonio. They're never right when that happens. Okay? But that forecasting, we're looking at, so think about it this way. That weather person is looking at the conditions in the atmosphere, and the last time those conditions were like that, we had rain. So I'm going to predict, because now those conditions are coming up again, it's going to rain. Okay? And all those conditions are in place, 100% chance of rain. Just some of them, 10% chance of rain. Okay? And so the same thing happens in our restaurants. We can forecast based on past data. Okay? And so what information do we use? Leslie talked about events. What are some other things that we use for forecasting? Sorry? The time of the year. Good. Weekends. Holidays. We can also go even more specific. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was like, season.
Yeah, good. The seasons. It's a different time of the year. So we can actually go even more specific to when Valentine's Day is on a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday versus when Valentine's Day is on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Right? So we can even go even more specific. Can we always compare last year to this year? Not always. What happened in 2018 that did not happen in 2019? The Final Four. March Madness, April, end of March, beginning of April, we had the men's Final Four in San Antonio. Can we compare our 2019 to 2018? No. We don't have that volume of business that we had in 2018. So when we're looking at our 2019 budgets, we might go back to 2017 and then just increase a little bit more for the inflation and for the growth that we're going to expect from year over year. Okay? So, but in 2025, when the men's Final Four comes back to San Antonio, we can look back at 2018 and say, what did we do in 2018 when the men's Final Four was here? Okay, so it's not always just an even, what did we do last year? We want to look at when those conditions are the same to when they're going to be in the future. Okay, does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. So what kind of things can we forecast in our business? We can forecast sales. Good. That's dollars. We can forecast that. Okay, so in hotels, we're gonna focus on occupancy percentage, and in restaurants, that relates to the number of guests, number of guests that we seat in our restaurant, the number of what we call covers. Okay, a cover is one guest. How many guests that we actually serve? Okay, and so we can do covers, we can do sales.
Labor costs?
Yeah, we can do cost, labor cost. So if we're going to be this busy with the number of guests, then it's going to take me this number of people to serve that number of guests. So that's going to cost me this amount of money. Yes, Daniel.
Yesterday at work, we had 60 covers, so I had to push in a specific amount of, meat and fish, lobster. So, based off that, that's how much I fresh.
Good. Where do you work?
Bistro night.
Bistro. Oh, that's right. You told me that. I need to go out there for a restaurant week. That's end this
Yeah,
week.
it's like for Monday, that's pretty high. Usually, like Saturday, we do like 140.
Okay.
So, we get busy.
Yeah. And so what you're talking about right there is popularity percentage, and then taking that percentage and applying it to the different menu items, which is super exciting. We're going to do that in a later chapter. Don't you worry. Daniel's already an expert. So when we start talking about that, everyone's go Daniel and ask for help. But essentially, we're forecasting how much to prepare. How many of y'all been a prep cook? Okay. And your manager says, I want you to prep 100 servings of spaghetti. Where did they get that 100 from? They just pull it out of their head? I think 100 sounds like a good number. They're looking at their planning, and they're looking at that forecast. So like Daniel said, there's 60 covers, and we're going to forecast we have this amount. And so this means I'm going to do a certain number of steak, and a certain number of lobster, a certain number of pasta. And that's how we prepare for what we're going to do. It's all about forecasting. It's interesting. Somebody asked me once, because they think I teach this class, I'm like an expert, which you can think that if you would like to. I'm okay with it. But they always ask me, like, what's the biggest thing that restaurants lose money on? And I'm like, labor is usually the highest cost. They said, but oftentimes people just throw food away. They don't know how much to prepare. So they just make all this food, and if they don't sell it and it goes bad, they have to throw it away. Yes, sir.
Or do you like buy over?
Good. They over purchase the amount that they need. And so if they over purchase, then if it's a perishable product, it could go bad and they can't sell it. So yeah, good. That's all part of the inventory. All that budgeting, all that forecasting comes into play.
But Mr. Wade,
Yes, sir.
Most of the restaurants around here use the Atlas system where it actually regulates and tell you when.
So there are computerized systems that allow you to it will help you forecast your volume. Absolutely.
If you put the data in there,
But you still have to use that data that you have to put in.
Right.
Absolutely. Yep. Okay. So here we go. Target sales. $800,000. My customer count for last year was 32,300. I'm going to decrease, for whatever reason, I'm decreasing by 4% for my customer count. Okay. So my anticipated customer count is 31,008. How did I get that number? What was my original number? 32,300, right? And so you can write this down if you would like to. I would encourage you to do so. 32,300 guests. Remember, we have to put our units on there. Okay, our 32,300 guests. We multiply that by our 0.04. Why 0.04? I've got to move that decimal place over 2 spots. Oops, sorry, I put my decimal place in the wrong started in the wrong spot. Here we go. Decimal place over 2, and I add that 0. Okay? So who can give me what that is? 32,300 times 0.04. 1,292? Thank you so much. 1,292 guests. Now, what am I increasing or decreasing? I'm decreasing, so that means I have to subtract. Okay? So I take 32,300 and I subtract 1,292 guests, and I'm going to get 31,008. Oops, that's not a dollar amount. Just kidding. Do we see how that works? Okay, so that's our forecasting. For whatever reason, this year's not going to be as busy. Maybe I don't have a major convention in town. Or my restaurant's not going to be as busy as it was last time. Maybe I just see the general decrease overall, and I don't want to over budget and then not meet my budget. So I'm going to be a little bit more cautious, and I'm going to go ahead and decrease instead of increase my customer count. Yes, sir.
Maybe they got a bad review.
Maybe you got a bad review and people stop coming, and you're still trying to do some guest recovery out of that. Absolutely. There's so many different types of scenarios that can happen, and that's for you as the manager to investigate. Okay, we'll talk about the taking corrective action at the end. Questions about this? So this is customer count.
Like you actually need more when you really do.
So you want to be cautious, but you also want to challenge yourself. So when you're setting those budgets, more often than not, your sales budgets are going to increase from last year and your expenses are going to decrease. Okay, of course we always want to control our costs, and we always want to make a little bit more than we did last year. Okay, but you also want to be cautious, or you want to be, I don't want to say careful is cautious. You don't want to say, oh, we're going to increase our sales by 10%. That may not be realistic. So you want to be more realistic when you're actually doing this. So we're going to do a couple of practice. Okay, so you might want to write these down. Jill, give me a number. This is customer count. 16,000. Okay, so we have 16,000 guests. Bradley, are we going to increase or decrease?
We're gonna increase.
Okay, we're going to increase by how much?
3,000.
What percentage? Sorry, increases always has a percentage.
10%.
10%. Okay, increase by 10%. So now if I multiply 16,000 times 10%, which is 0.010, okay, that's going to give me 1,600, correct? We all agree?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Let me make that a little bit clearer. 1,600. Now what do I have to do? Add it back to 16,000, right? So I add 16,000, 17,600. Okay, guests.
Would you ever put like, no.
Okay, so I'm going to teach you a little shortcut, okay?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
gonna teach you, yes, sir.
Would you ever put like 10.5%?
Yeah, you could do decimal percentages.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I'm gonna teach you a little shortcut. Hopefully your minds will be blown. If not, that's okay. But okay, so what is 16,000 times 1? 16,000, right? So if I'm adding right here, if I add this right here together, I get 1.1. If I multiply my first number by 1.1, I automatically get this answer right here, 17,600. Put in your calculators. I promise it's true.
That's only a shortcut if it's 10%, right?
No, I'll teach you why in just a minute. Teach you how to do it in just a minute. 1.1. So this right here, this 1 accounts for this 16,000, and this 0.1 accounts for this 1,600. Okay? So it just does one calculation. Now, if you need to do the first method, multiply and then add, do the first method. I'm just showing this to you as an opportunity to have a shortcut. Okay? Because essentially what this 1 right here represents is 100%. This 1 right here represents 100%. So by multiplying by 1.1, you automatically get 17,600. Okay? We'll do some other examples here in just a minute. Let me erase this one, because I don't think I did a blank slide next. If I did, oh well. But I'll erase this. And let's do a subtraction one. It works both ways. So Nathan, give me a guess count, please.
5,000.
5,000 guests. Okay. Christina, this time we're going to decrease by how much?
2%.
2% decrease. So since we're decreasing, we're going to do our 5,000 first. Okay. What is 5,000 times 1? 5,000, right? And so now we do our 5,000 times 0.02, and we get what? 100, right? That's what I had in my mind. It was 100. So I'm going to do 100, and what do I do here? I have to subtract. I'm decreasing. So I have 4,900 guests. Okay? Same thing applies. What did I do right here? I subtracted, right? So if I subtract this number, what do I get? 0.98. So if I multiply 5,000 times 0.98, I'm automatically going to get 4,900. Okay? So whatever your increase or your decrease is, add it or subtract it from 1. And then just multiply that number by your original amount, and it'll give you the number right off the bat. It's a shortcut. It's optional. If it takes you 30 extra seconds to do the multiply and then subtract method, do that if it gets you the right answer. But eventually you can work your way up. Once you get comfortable with that, work your way up to that shortcut. Okay? It's gonna make life a whole lot easier.
Can we do one with like 2.4%?
Yeah, we sure can. Okay, so Victor wants to do 2.4%. Are we increasing or decreasing?
Let's decrease.
All right, so decrease by 2.4%. Okay, Samantha, how many guests do we have? 24,000 guests. Okay, so 24,000 times 1.00 equals 24,000. We move this decimal place over 2 spots. So now we have 24,000 times 0.024. Okay. And we get, what's 24,000 times 0.024? Thank you so much, Taisha. 576 is our decrease. So we're subtracting that from 24,000 and we get 23,424. If I was going to do my shortcut method, I subtract 0.024 from 1 and I do 24,000 times 0.976 will give me my automatic answer. Okay, so because we have that decimal place, the 0.4, that's going to give us a 3 decimal place factor to multiply by. Adding or subtracting. Go from 1. That 1 takes care of your original number. And if it's over 1, then it's going to automatically add that. If it's less than 1, it's going to automatically subtract that amount. Math is amazing. Everyone say it on 3. 1, 2, 3. Math. Come on, y'all. I know it's like 2:45 in the afternoon, but we got 1, 2, 3. Excellent. Yes, Victor.
Yeah, I got lost.
Are you okay?
Where I'm at, I'm sorry, y'all.
No, you're fine.
I got the 576.
Okay.
And then after that, I'm
So you need to subtract that from our original number since we're decreasing.
I did.
And so we get 23,424 guests.
What? Oh. Maybe that. 24,000. Subtracted by. I keep getting. Oh, nothing.
Awesome.
Great question.
Yes, go ahead.
Why do you multiply the 24,000 times 1?
Okay, so, what, by 1.00? Okay, so let's do it minus that section without it so you can see it without that, okay? So in this case, we have 24,000 guests. And we're decreasing, let's do this one. How much do you want to decrease by?
3.
3%, okay? So we're decreasing by 3%. So if I first start off with 24,000 times what? 0.03, what do I get? 720? So that's the number that I'm going to decrease by. So since I'm decreasing it, what do I have to subtract it from? From the original 24,000. So this right here is where that 24,000 comes into play. So if we subtract that, then we get 23,280. Okay. We see how that looks? So we got the 24,000. What I was just showing for that times 0.10
That's what was throwing me off.
is I was just showing this as 24,000 times 1 equals 24,000. Okay? And then if you add these two together, or in this case we're going to subtract them because we're decreasing. If we do this 24,000 times 0.97, it'll automatically give you that answer.
Oh, now I get it. You subtracting the 3 from the.
Subtracting 3 from 1, I get 0.97. And that's going to automatically give me that answer of 23,280.
But that's pretty much like a checking system.
Yeah. Yeah.
Check your bank.
So we know that 24,000 is one.
Right.
Okay. So if you need to do it this way, and where it just looks like that, do it just like that. Okay? Do it just like that. Questions about that? No? Okay. Along. Revenue. So with our revenue, same thing here. We're going to use a percentage increase. Now with our percentage increase, with revenue, with dollars amount, oftentimes there's inflation. Okay? So oftentimes there's inflation. Things are going to be automatically inflated. So in this case, what's our inflation rate? 2.5%. And so what we want to look at is what our real growth is. So if I'm going to budget for 3% growth, but there's a 2.5% inflation rate, at the end of the year, I'm really going to be looking for a half a percent in growth, because I'm going to take into consideration that inflation. Costs are going to go up. Cost of ingredients are going to go up. Cost of labor is going to go up. Can you imagine what's going to happen in San Antonio when they make the minimum wage, what, $12.50? Or $15 an hour minimum wage? And automatically, think about what that's going to do to the businesses.
They gotta.
What's that going to do to the cost of our cheeseburgers? Right? And so, of course, please don't get me wrong.
It's like a domino.
Okay? It would be wonderful if we could pay everybody $15 an hour minimum wage. Okay? But if you're looking at it very one-sided, then you don't really understand what's going to happen on the business side. There's not going to be any more dollar menus at McDonald's. They can't afford to sell a cheeseburger for $1 when they're paying somebody $15 an hour. Or what's already happening? I'm not going to pay anybody $15 an hour. I'm going to pay a kiosk nothing.
Yeah.
To let somebody go and just push their own order in. So, sorry to get really political, but do you want to get paid minimum wage $7.25? Or do you want to have no job because a kiosk is going to replace your job? Okay? And so there's all these things to consider. And I'm not saying one is better than the other. There's pros and cons to both. Okay? I know cost of living is high, so it requires more hourly wage to manage that cost of living. So there's a whole bunch of factors to consider. But think about it from this perspective. As a business owner, if your inflation automatically, all of a sudden your rate goes up that you have to pay somebody the labor, that has to go somewhere. And typically the customer is going to pay for that. Because we need to get those sales, those revenues in order to cover that cost. Yes, sir.
What I was going to ask next thing about, like in California,
Mm-hmm.
the cost of living is so high, but the minimum wage is low. It would work for them, the actual people that's working there, living there. But here, I mean, the cost of living is not as high as it is.
It's relatively low compared to other places. Absolutely. Absolutely. So different types of budgets. We have long-term and short-term. Okay? Capital improvement or capital expenditures, that's a budget that we're looking at to improve something of our business. Maybe we're going to, well, okay, let me put it this way. What are some things in our businesses that we spend a lot of money on, like at one time? No, not our food.
Stuff to make things work.
Was it electric bill?
Mm-mm. We spend like something that's going to improve our business. That's what the whole point of capital expenditures.
Advertising.
So
Advertising?
equipment is one that I'm thinking of. Okay, equipment and upgrades. Right. So if we're in a hotel, we're going to upgrade every room from a manual key to a key card. That's going to take some money to upgrade that. If we're in a hotel, we're going to upgrade from a manual key card to now readers that will actually be opened from the phone that can recognize those signals. That's another additional upgrade. In a restaurant, if we want to buy furniture, new furniture for our dining room, if we want to buy new equipment for our kitchen, if we want to buy a new neon sign that will attract more business to our, those are all capital expenditures, okay? And those budgets, typically, when I spend something on like a new piece of equipment, I'm not going to put that item in my budget or like in my operating costs as a one lump sum as an expense. It's going to go off into my capital expenditures budget. Because eventually, over time, it's going to depreciate in value each year. It's going to depreciate. And so it's a whole other budget that we're looking at. But capital expenditures, you want to think about as big investments that you're going to invest in something to help your company work better, okay? The operating budget, that's where you're going to see your wages, your salary, your food costs. So that is part of your long-term budget, but it's part of the operating. It takes things that we actually need to do to operate our business is part of that operating budget, okay? Operate isn't the key word. So it costs me money to buy food. It costs me money to serve the food. It costs me energy, right? All those things are part of operation. So it's going to go in my operating budget. Now, that long-term budget is like a year to 5 years out, okay? Primarily also with those capital expenditures, we want to be looking at the long-term picture for that. We can also do short-term budgets, weekly, monthly, and quarterly. So I can take all the labor that I have available in my budget for this week. The labor I have available for my week this week, is the same for next week? No, it could be different. This week we could have a convention of 20,000 American Dental Association attendees. Or this week next week we can have no conferences in town. So our labor budget is going to be different from week to week. Okay, we can control those. Typically the long-term ones, only the high-level management, owners, general managers, department managers are going to be involved with that. The weekly, monthly, and quarterly, you might get some more involvement from all the management levels, the lower level management. Because they're the ones who are managing those weekly budgets. The general manager isn't in their office saying, oh my gosh, front desk, you're over your labor budget. Or, oh my goodness, restaurant, you spent too much money on servers, start sending them home. No, that's the responsibility of the restaurant supervisor, the restaurant manager, okay? We have fixed and flexible budgets. So fixed means what? What does fixed mean? It does not change. No matter what. You have $10,000 in labor. Once you hit $10,001, you're cut off. You're in trouble. Okay? Flexible budgets mean if your sales are up, then it's okay to be up in your expenses because you've spent more, you brought in more money, so we need to have higher expenses to cover that. So having a little bit of flexibility in the budget is not always a bad thing, okay? But you have to be able to justify. If you go over your budget in expenses, then you need to be able to justify why you did that, okay? Income statements. What is at the bottom of every income statement?
Gross profit.
That is your, not gross profit, it's your, what's the opposite of gross? Net profit, okay? It's your net profit. Net profit is at the bottom of every income statement, okay? How many of you have heard the term bottom line? Bottom line means the bottom line of the income statement, our net profit, okay? What's at the very top of every income statement? Revenue. or sales, okay? Revenue or sales is always at the top because we have to subtract everything from that, okay? So revenue is always at the top. What comes next is typically food and beverage and labor. What do we call those two things put together? Starts with a P. It's a grade of USDA beef. Prime, there we go. That is our prime cost. Talked about it last week. It's our prime cost. Why are those two things our prime cost?
That's what the cost of.
And the most money on?
So we maybe not always spend the most money on, we probably could, but they are the most,
That you have control of.
the most controllable cost. Those two things. I can control how much food I order, whether I'm controlling it very well and not ordering the right amount, or if I'm not controlling it and I'm ordering too much. I can control how much food I'm going to order. I can control how much labor I'm spending, how much money I'm spending on labor. I can control all of that. And so that's why it's our prime cost, because it is our most controllable cost. Okay? Then that's pretty much that's often called our gross operating profit. Or our profit before expenses. And then we have all of our other expenses. All of our other expenses. Rent, utilities, insurance, taxes. All of that stuff adds up. We subtract everything to get our net profit. Okay? So what you might expect in the next class, let's clean this up a little bit, is a quiz that might say, outline a general income statement. Outline a general income statement. What goes at the top?
Revenue.
Good. Revenue or sales. I'll take that. What comes next? Food and beverage and labor. What is always at the bottom? Okay, so our profit. And then what's after labor? Expense. Well, this when I say a general outline, this is our general outline right here. Revenue minus food and beverage minus labor, and then other expenses. And that's profit. So first line is what? Second line is, third line, fourth line, fifth line, or bottom line is the bottom line, or the fifth line is profit. Okay? If you want to take a note, it's at 43 minutes and about 30 seconds in the video of when we're talking about this. 43 minutes and 30 seconds. Skip to that, and it's going to show you right what we just talked about.
And the reason why there's no gross profit is because you get all your stuff.
There is a gross operating profit between this line right here, okay? But I'm not gonna focus on that. This is primarily revenue, profit, food and beverage, labor, and other expenses, okay? Food and beverage is always first, and labor is always second, and other expenses is always third, as far as our expenses is concerned, okay? Oh my gosh, we have like 9 minutes. Hold on, we got this. Okay, I know this is super tiny. This is on page 30, I think, of your textbook. So you can see here, we have our sales. This is the cost of our sales, which is our food. And then we have our payroll, other expenses, depreciation, and then our income at the bottom. Okay? So I'm going to ask you a very simplified one, not the whole thing.
What is depreciation? I don't get that.
So depreciation is every time I use something, it depreciates in value. Okay, so this is not an accounting class, but in an accounting situation, let's say my car depreciates by $500 every month. Okay, so in a budgeting on the accounting side, I'm not actually going to take that $500 out. I'm actually going to ideally put it into a separate account, that capital expenditures account, and then that way, when I'm time for me to buy a new car, I've got that money saved up. So depreciation is a dollar amount, and when you go into accounting, there's a specific depreciation formula, which is way too hard for me to get into. Okay, but that's basically what depreciation is. It depreciates in value the more you use it, until the point where it has no more value. And then once it has no more value, ideally you're going to replace that piece of equipment. So all along the whole time you've been putting money aside to then purchase a new piece of equipment.
Oh, okay, all right.
Okay?
Just taking money out.
Yeah. So first we're going to establish our, I don't think we're going to have time to finish this. Let's see if we can do it. I have faith, self-efficacy, we can do it. Okay? So we can look at sales forecasting. When we look at this right here, what is our lowest percentage day of weekly sales? Monday at 5.99%. So I can take that 5.99% and realize that Mondays are really slow as far as my sales. Maybe I need to have a happy hour on Mondays to get my sales to come up. Okay? And so we can look at this information. What's our busiest time of the week? Saturday is our busiest time of the week. Okay? Now, Saturday is also the time that people spend the most money. Almost $27 per person. Okay, so what's the day that we spend the least amount of money per person? Sundays, 1983. So just because it's our slowest period doesn't mean people are spending the most money. So now, Sunday, I'm gonna get all my servers. Hey, sell wings or sell drinks or sell desserts, sell appetizers. Let's get that cost per person up and get it higher. Okay, and so we can use this information, that past data, to predict and to kind of help us plan for the future.
Or maybe on Monday have some kind of special.
Yeah, absolutely. Have a special. Get people in there. We can budget our expenses. So looking at our past data, what's the one that we spend the most money on? What category? Meat at 11.1%. If I got this actual here and my produce was more than meat and I'm a steakhouse, my produce should not cost more than my meat if I'm a steakhouse. I would have issues, okay? I would have huge issues. And so we can look at that to figure out what we're going to budget for our expenses for next month. If my budget for my total cost this month was $280,000, if my budget for next month is $400,000, because I know I'm going to be really busy, I can take 11.1% of that $400,000, and that's my new meat budget. I want to make sure I'm staying within that budget. Okay. Same thing here with liquor, wine, and beer. So our alcohol sales. We can look and see that what is our lowest percentage? Beer. What's our highest percentage? Wine is a little bit higher than liquor. Okay. And so we can look at this and we can say, obviously beer should be the cheapest. Okay. Beer is typically cheaper than liquor and wine. Wine, depending on the liquor that we're selling, wine could be higher. Or in this case, what if somebody wasn't paying attention and they opened every bottle of red wine? And then they didn't sell the whole bottle and it went bad. We could make our own red wine vinegar, or that's basically what happens when wine turns into vinegar. So we can make our own in-house red wine vinegar and then have a special and sell our red wine vinaigrette dressing and make some money off of it, or we throw it away. Okay? Or if somebody's not paying attention and they dropped a whole case of wine and those wine bottles broke, okay? If my budget is 9% and all of a sudden my actual comes into it, my actual is 15%, holy cow, I have issues here. Okay, so this is where we're taking this past information and we're using it for the future. We're not going to do this. Welcome. Okay. Budgeting as a control where we are assessing our results. What we just talked about. Now up here, look at this, food. Okay. Our variance is 75,000. Is it red or black? It's in black because our actual is more than our budgeted. We budgeted 850,000 in sales. We actually made 925,000. We went over our budget. Okay, that's a good number. Where it's red is when it's bad. Okay, so it's bad because we budgeted 482, but we didn't get 482. We were short by 25,900. We were short. Okay, now flip to the other side down here. This is sales. That's money coming in. Flip to the other side. Down below is our cost. Now it's flipped. This is red because we went over on our cost. We spent 315,000. We wanted to spend 288,000, so we are over by 26,500. Red is a bad number. Okay, it does not mean negative. It does not mean positive. It means that we went outside of our budget.
Isn't it like we said before, because your food sales is higher than it would be okay, you would get covered?
So it depends. This would be a great example of why you can justify our sales went up. It's still a red number because it's outside of our budget. But if you can justify why it's up because you went over in sales. Now, if you look, our cost of food sold is still only 22.8%. Is that better than 32? Heck yeah. 32 is higher. So we actually were 10 points lower on our food cost percentage. That's a good number. Okay. That was my last one. Corrective action. I have like a minute and a half. Okay, I can't go back. So we're going to talk about corrective action. We have to decide when things don't follow our budget, what do we have to do? If our food cost is skyrocketing,
Just somewhere else.
I got to figure out what? I heard it? Portion. I got to go in as a manager. I have to make sure that every plate walking out of there has 1 scoop of mashed potatoes. And it's a 4-ounce scoop. It's not just a spoonful. Okay? That every shrimp Alfredo has 6 shrimp and not just, oh, here's a handful, however many I feel like putting in there. Okay? So we have to take corrective action if our cost is exceeding. Okay? If our cost is lower than what we thought, like our sales are lower, corrective action can be, let's institute happy hour. Let's do a special today. Let's do this so we don't lose this product. Oh, we had roasted chickens? Guess what? Tomorrow we're going to have chicken salad on our lunch menu. This is a special. We never have chicken salad unless, of course, we make too much chicken the night before. Okay? So guests think, oh, wow, this is cool. This is new. I need to have this because it won't always be here. It's a special. It literally is our chicken from last night, chopped up. Throw some walnuts, some grapes, some mayonnaise, and some curry powder, and then you got a curry chicken salad sandwich. Okay? You're good to go. But people think it's special because it's not always on the menu, but it literally is last night's product. We over-ordered because it was raining. We can forecast. Our forecast is not always right. It was raining last night, so we didn't have 200 covers. We only had 50. You know, those extra product that we prepped already, and some of it we can't use again. So those corrective actions, I feel like the word corrective action makes it sound like it's a negative. It's punitive. You're punishing. But it's not always correct. Corrective action is taking your problem that you have and fixing it and making it work. Okay? So that's the end of chapter 2. We did it. Thank you for your extra minute. Have a wonderful day. I will post this video on Canvas so you can watch it. We will have that quiz on Thursday for the simplified income statement. I promise. And it's a fill in the blank. It's not.
Okay, we'll go.
It's a fill in the blank. You gotta know it. Yes, sir.
I came in late.
I got you.